It's snowing in Colorado in February. Can you believe it? Seems like more businesses are telling people to stay home from work when it snows. Is that like a thing now, or are we just imagining that? The congressman leading Colorado's Republican Party suggests impeaching former Vice President Joe Biden, like right now. Our state isn't allowed to say how many banks will do business with the cannabis industry, but they'd like to double that mystery number. And a tribute to Colorado's kindness, which seems to pile up whenever the snow falls. Speaking of, impending white doom! Colorado braces for an entirely seasonable and completely manageable snowfall. 4 to 8 inches in the I-25 corridor, 6 to 8 in the foothills. I mean, it's pretty wild after temperatures were in the 70s yesterday. Driving will be an issue, especially for people who don't know how to drive in the snow. Schools have canceled evening activities, so families will be forced to spend time together at home. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen filed this haiku from Genesee.
Standing in the snow, 74 to 20, mustache full of ice.
The guy digs haikus. I don't know what to say. It does seem like we're seeing changing attitudes on when Colorado's snowy days turn into snow days. More schools and more businesses are telling people to just stay home when honestly it's not that bad in most places. Our Steve Steger set out to learn if our hunch is accurate.
What we do a lot of times is tell people if they can go home from work early, do it.
Okay, it isn't just us noticing it more. CDOT spokesman Bob Wilson says the state started using that message more frequently because it works.
Once we started using that message, we noticed a lot of people started getting off the roadways.
And CDOT leads by example in this case. When government closes early, businesses tend to follow their lead.
For the most part, we follow what the city is. If the city closes, we will also close.
Alex Neal runs marketing for Thrive Workspaces. He says they'll keep their employees home if government agencies do too, but the workspaces are still open 24/7.
A lot of the workforce is moving towards a freelance thing, and projects have to get done, and there's a lot of deadlines that have to be met.
Across town, the office was practically empty at the accounting software firm Xero.
I sent a note out via our Slack channel to the Denver office saying, the snow is coming. They're predicting it's going to pick up in the afternoon.
HR lead Janet Galbraith says these days, just about everyone has the capability to work remotely.
We realize people can be more productive sitting in their home office or at their kitchen counter than trying to get on I-70 and I-25 to get to the office.
Something that's been a battle in the past in other jobs.
Here, it's basically just a given. 10 years ago, I would say it wasn't as much that case with leadership, having that openness to things.
So obviously, flexibility depends on the job. Case in point, there are no firm stats on this, but the people that we've chatted with around town today say a whole lot more businesses are closing on snow days, partially because you've got kids who may be out of school, you got to take care of them, and you just have that ability to work remotely a lot more than you ever used to.
Sure, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it like that. I mean, if my grandfather took a snow day, then there was nobody to signal the train.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But yeah, well, and you got to think. I mean, there are people who have to work on days, like police officers, firefighters, people who work in hospitals. But there are a lot of people who can take their computer home and do all of that work at home. It was interesting. Bob Wilson from CDOT had a fascinating point on this. He said, I went to Denver public schools, and all those years ago, he said, you never got a snow day, even in the school district. But he said now, as he's worked at CDOT for 22 years, he's noticed that the messaging has really changed to try to keep people safe and to let them have the space to do their work and clear off the roads.
I often think that that's myth-making when people say, oh, I didn't have snow days when I was a kid. We never took a day. But Bob Wilson at CDOT, he's in a position to actually study it and know. So I believe it when he says it.
Yeah,
all right.
Me too.
Thank you, Steve. Republican Congressman Ken Buck, who also runs Colorado's Republican Party, is talking about impeaching former Vice President Joe Biden. Like doing it like right now. Congress can impeach a former elected official to prevent them from holding office again. So Buck was on Fox Business, where he was asked about a Republican senator's suggestion that if Biden gets elected, then he might be impeached.
Well, I would say this. There's no reason to wait for that. Senator or Vice President Biden could be impeached now. There's no reason that you have to only impeach someone who is in office. You can hold the hearings, you can gather the evidence, you can move forward. But the extent of the corruption that you see, at least the allegations of corruption that you see around the Biden family, is very troubling.
All right, so obviously this is not going to happen, right? Impeachment begins in the House, which is controlled by Democrats. Congressman Buck, of course, knows this. Congressman Buck also knows that talking about impeaching Biden immediately on Fox Business will play really well with Republicans, which is why he immediately posted that clip on social media even before Fox put it up. Colorado's Democratic Senator Michael Bennet is not expected to be competitive in tonight's Iowa caucuses. He could show up in the results, though, thanks to a change in how they are reported. Bennet has been polling right about where you are in Iowa, near 0%. But for the first time, the caucus participants' initial preferences will be reported along with the final results. If you're not familiar with the caucus system, people physically stand in groups for their preferred candidate. If they don't hit 15% in the room, then the smaller groups have to dissolve or break up. People go to their second choice. So we're going to get to see how many people like Michael Bennet as their first choice, even if he doesn't come away with anything. So Colorado no longer uses the caucus system for presidential primaries. The caucuses are still used for other races. I bring this up because today is the last day to change your party affiliation if you want to vote in the March 3rd presidential primary. You can also now change it to unaffiliated. You'll get 2 ballots and you can pick the party primary of your choice. Today again is the deadline. It's easy to make the switch on the Secretary of State's website. No county clerk in Colorado makes more news than Arapahoe County Clerk Joan Lopez. And that is not good news for Clerk Lopez. She is back in the spotlight for yet another blunder. Lopez, who's a Democrat, has been criticized for being overtly partisan, criticized for how she spends tax dollars, and criticized for this interview on Next when she was unable to articulate how to run a fair election. Now, Lopez is apologizing for failing to get nearly 1,000 military ballots sent out on time. Lopez describes this as a data entry error, and she says that her office is now sending primary ballots to overseas military families via expedited mail, if that's what's necessary. So how much of your own money do you have to spend just to get your job done? I don't really spend any of my own money here, but I think back to my parents, teachers constantly buying stuff out of their own pocket for the classroom. Colorado's legislators are considering giving teachers a break. Yet politics guy Marshall Zellinger found the math may not add up.
Lesson plans, pencils, notebooks. Teachers are the glue that hold classrooms together, usually by spending their own money on what's in their classroom.
I remember the last year I changed classrooms, I spent just over $850 of my own money.
Democratic State Representative Bri Buenteo, a former special education teacher in Pueblo, is working with Republican Representative Mark Baisley to get some of that self-spent money back for 60,000 statewide educators.
It's almost a raise, not quite, but it's a refund for what they've done.
Currently, teachers, principals, and other educators can get a $250 federal tax deduction on school supplies they pay for. The bill at the Capitol would give them another $250 in a state tax credit. Depending on how many teachers file for the credit, it could cost the state $5 to $10 million in new yearly refunds. But it could also cost millions for the Department of Revenue just to make the refunds happen.
The overhead for administrating these refunds, that's exaggerated, and we're going to be having some stern conversations with our friends across the street.
Eric Myers works across the street.
Refundable tax credits, which this is, have a higher prevalence of fraud.
He's the director of taxation services for the Department of Revenue and explained it costs money in order to refund money, especially if you're trying to prevent fraud on a new tax credit for 60,000 educators on top of reviewing other existing tax credits.
Basically, you're hiring new employees to do the same thing current employees do, but because there's going to be so much more work.
That's correct. People may confuse the intent of the tax credit with just spending money on back-to-school items, and we want to prevent that from happening, and only give it to educators who are eligible for the credit.
So the millions of dollars that could go back to educators could cost the state millions because of people who may fraudulently try to claim it on their taxes, and you actually have physical people, bodies at this Department of Revenue that review the tax returns and say, hey, nope, not this one, this one's okay, not that one. If you think Democrats would automatically be for this, during the committee hearing for this today, I heard Representative Matt Gray from Broomfield say, this is a quote, if we're going to pat ourselves on the back and act like, congratulations, legislators, you've done our job, I'm out. Because he doesn't want to take from the same piggy bank that already funds all of education.
It's almost a little bit counterintuitive just because we know how close teachers and teachers unions are with Democrats, but it's been Republicans who have pushed this idea for years and years, and now the Dems are just kind of coming on board.
And last year it was Senator Owen Hill. He did it. It died in the first committee it was in, and that said and done, and it was the same it might have been a little bit more money, and now it's more scrutiny, and it's costing the state perhaps less money to administer. It's amazing how once the Democrats get on board, then it gets some traction.
It's a shame that this isn't one, retroactive, and two, applies to folks out of state, because my mom probably kept the receipts and she could cash in. All right, thanks, Marshall. Banking for the cannabis industry is a touchy issue. So, of course, banks are scared because marijuana is illegal on the federal level, and banks are federally regulated. It is so touchy that the state of Colorado will not say how many banks here take cannabis cash. They take it so that pot shops aren't sitting on piles of money just waiting to get robbed. State regulators are now trying to entice more banks to get into this business.
So our goal with this roadmap is to, as you stated, increase the number of state financial service providers that are in this space. Unfortunately, I'm prohibited by the statute from disclosing exactly how many are in this space. However, though, I can say it's around a handful.
It's around a handful. I'm not sure what that means. Perhaps you have heard that there is a bill sitting in Congress that would allow legal cannabis businesses to have access to banks. Perhaps you have also noticed that Congress is broken.
If there's one characteristic I don't have, it's self-awareness. But the Broncos showed some today.
Yeah, that's what I do when it's cold, in my spare time. Go around, help the community.
Meet Nathan the Snowman. He doesn't have a song like Frosty, but he does have the adoration of his neighbors. Next.
When J.K. Rowling put pen to paper and began writing what would become one of the most popular book franchises in history, little did she know that a congressman from Colorado would one day quote her words in an attempt to impeach a president. Congressman Jason Crow from Aurora, in his final speech as a House impeachment manager today, dropped a little Dumbledore.
My wife and I have tried to teach our kids that what we can always control are our choices. It's in that spirit that hanging in my son's room is a quote from Harry Potter. The quote is from Professor Dumbledore, who said, "It is our choices that show who we truly are, far more than our abilities." This trial will soon be over, but there will be many choices for all of us in the days ahead, the most pressing of which is how each of us will decide to fulfill our oath.
Not sure that Harry Potter's changing a lot of minds in that room. It's pretty clear from the closing arguments that both sides were just talking to voters at this point, because the jurors, the senators, they got their minds made up.
A shock to the system. Sunshine and 74 yesterday. It was a record. Today, snow, wind, and cold. We've been sitting in the teens all afternoon with a 55-degree temperature spread in 24 hours' time. Denver remains under a winter weather advisory through 6 o'clock tomorrow morning for 3 to 6 inches of snow. Some of that heavy snow is going to fall after midnight tonight, so definitely a factor for the drive tomorrow morning. We already have a couple inches on the ground, and we do expect a few more between now and 7 tomorrow morning, with the heavier amounts above 7,000 feet across the foothills. And again, advisories for travel in the high country, a winter storm warning for 6 to 14 inches of snow way up high. And so we'll continue to monitor the roads for you tonight. Our crew coming in early tomorrow to monitor the situation as well. Our high today at 30, we hit just after midnight. The snow will continue off and on all evening and throughout the day tomorrow. Again, advisories for travel with more snow, and then we're going to focus on the cold. And tonight will be plenty cold enough. As a matter of fact, we're looking for a low in the city of 9, snow and wind through tomorrow morning. We've got wind chill values below 0, high of 18 tomorrow, low to -2 tomorrow night. And then we get a little bit of a warming trend. We get a nice push of warm air coming in ahead of the next round of snow Friday and a chance for snow showers again on Sunday. So this is a good time. Check out the 9 News weather app. The radar on there is just so handy with a storm like this.
Thank you, Kathy. Hey, kudos to the Broncos. After missing the playoffs for the 4th straight year, there's only so much they can do in the offseason, but they announced that they are not going to raise ticket prices for next season. Got to appreciate that, right? I mean, they could have tried to spin fans' optimism about Drew Lock into a price hike, you know. Oh, they're a playoff team right away. I don't know. Let's face it. Broncos have not been a good team the last few seasons, and the powers that be decided that raising ticket prices this year would have probably raised a few eyebrows, you know, like it did last year. Our man on all things Broncos, Mike Kliss, knows the numbers. He says the Broncos ranked 17th in average ticket price last year.
He's like Frosty.
Yes, sir. That's what they call me, the snowman.
But not an awful 1960s animation. And just how high is that runner's high? Because this looks brutal. Next.
Best way to stay warm on a day this cold is to do something nice for a neighbor. Nathan Whitley is the toastiest man in town. We met him in 5 Points.
Yeah, this is Colorado. It'll snow be snow on the ground for 2-3 days, and the next day it's gone. Yeah, that's what I do when it's cold in my spare time. Go around, help the community. All right. Hey, you don't have to pay me anything. I'll be glad to do it. Oh, I've been here since I was born in 1961. So I've been here all my life. I'm not young. I've been around. I've been around for a long time. I'm still here, and so now they call me the snowman. And a lot of people know that too when they see me. Oh, you going to work, huh, snowman? Like, yeah, I'm going to do my thing there. Going to take care of some people. You know, because I know how important it is to them. But I managed to keep on going till the job is done. You know, to make sure it's cleaned up and safe for people to walk on. You know, I took after my dad, you know, never lazy. I got to do something. I got to work. I got to move around. If I feel like it keep moving, blessed to keep going, I'm going to keep on going until there's no more. This is it. This is me. I love it. I love it.
A day with the snowman through the lens of our photojournalist, Travis Ketchatorian. When we return, why would anybody run outdoors on a day like this? And a viewer who suggests that I need to. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today are the winter runners of Wash Park. They almost make it seem reasonable.
Just trying to get a run in midday. I'm going to do 2 laps, so what is that, 5 miles, something like that.
Just a jog around Wash Park, 1 loop around, yeah.
Just 7.5 miles.
Well, it's usually pretty crowded around here, and I don't know, there's something peaceful about the snow.
I actually like it because there's fewer people and it's an excuse to go slow, so no one chasing me.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful to run in the snow, and it's quiet.
A little quieter with the snow coming down.
Revitalizing. It's really nice.
I got long underwear on, some skivvies, and some gloves and a hat. Some neoprene toe warmers over the tip of my toes, just in case.
I think runners like this. Yeah.
If we could have this all winter long, it'd be great.
It's easy to stay in when it's like this, and once you're out here, I really enjoy being out here, so glad I made the plunge.
Laurel writes in tonight to say, you get a little power hungry having that microphone on your sausage jacket. Oh, what's that, you say? Sausage jacket? Because you look stuffed into them. I'm going to go run in the snow. I'll see you next time.